man. Just innocent, man. Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
Welcome. You knuckleheads. Hey! Nobody's looking for that. Come on now. That was a great alixplox doing Quakes on Rumble from Twisted Metal 2. His very own cover. Going over there to the LinkedIn page. Check out his good stuff. All right, fellas. Well, you know what's interesting? The stream was already going to be late today because there is so much news. What? Hang on. Breaking news now. To Gavin Games, fellas. The show. Oh shit, my voiceover. God damn it, man. You know what? Fuck you. All right, fellas. Man, this is the craziest thing. Anyway, welcome to Gavin Games. If you don't know, Jim Ryan's leaving Sony. We will get to that in just a moment. However, I want to tell you that before we went live, and we have a lot, I mean, seriously, today was going to be a late show anyway because there's a lot of news going on with Sony. There's a lot going on, you know, with Xbox. There's a lot going on with Meta. I don't even know how much we're going to get through it today because the Jim Ryan thing is probably going to dominate the conversation, but we'll find out. Before we get to that, though, it is my, I guess, responsibility as a professional broadcaster to alert you to a multiverse event that I believe has occurred sometime today. It was earlier this morning. I woke up, and I don't remember why this came across my news feed, but I want to show it to you. I was reading about Norm Macdonald and Bob Saget. And there was a news story talking about how Bob Saget gave some kind of eulogy to Norm Macdonald, both comedians that died last handful of years. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. Norm Macdonald just fucking died. Like, he just died like a couple of months ago. Bob Saget died in his hotel room. Remember, he hit his head on something and he died. Nobody knew what was going on. Months, a year, 2 years ago, Bob Saget's been dead. Well, not according to today's internet. So I put this tweet up. I'll show you the tweet. I asked the internet, I says, hey, don't look it up, go on your memory. Who died first? 56% of people believe Bob Saget died first. Only 43% remember Norm Macdonald dying first. This is a new entry into the Mandela Effect Index. Shit's going wild, folks. When we die, we were going to realize we are bumping up against multiverse after multiverse after multiverse, and sometimes the shit slips through. This is not a lie. This is not a bit. There's not a joke. I'm telling you, Bob Saget died a while ago, and Norm Macdonald died months ago. There's no fucking way. This is my universe. So there you go. But let's get to the big video game news. Probably the reason you're here. It's good to have you here. It's good to see you. I want to tell you, is this supposed to be silent? What are you talking about? Oh, you're fucking with me now, Fonzie. Fonzie Lopez in the chat says, is this supposed to be silent? Oh, for the love of God, please tell me I don't have to do that whole thing over again, because what I just told you people was very important and very relevant to your lives. The biggest video game news in a while just happened right before we were going to go live. I'm sure you've seen it. PlayStation boss Jim Ryan to retire next spring. He says it's because he's just struggling to make living in Europe and working in North America as the reason for the decision. This was broken by little Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg, but of course it's been picked up by everybody. This is an article over on IGN. And let me just get to the news first, then we'll talk about it. Hiroki Totoki, can you imagine? Maybe you can. I can't imagine having that name. Will assume the interim CEO role starting in April, and Ryan's out in March. The Sony Group Corporation president, CEO, and CFO will also become chairman of SIE next month to support the transition. Okay. Jim Ryan's been there for 30 years. He says, I've relished the opportunity. Let me do it the way he sounds. I'm a really good impersonation of him. I've relished the opportunity to have a job I love in a very special company, working with great peeps. He's hip, and incredible partners. But I found it increasingly difficult, my Shawayne, to reconcile living in Europe and working in North America. I will leave having been privileged to work on products that have touched millions of lives across the world. PlayStation will always be part of my life, and I feel more than optimistic than ever about the future. The move, of course, is a massive shakeup, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the two big questions there's three big questions. The most important question, if you just love the art form, is what does this mean moving ahead for PlayStation? But you can't really dive into that question without answering a bigger question, which is why is he really leaving? And then, of course, the third question is who is going to really become not the interim, but the full-on CEO next. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's very possible. I don't have any data, and there's a very high likelihood that this is the only information we're going to get about why he's leaving, at least publicly. It's very possible some form of this is accurate. I don't know if he's married. Let's say he's married and his wife's like, look, Governor, you better get over here and give me a proper shagging more often than I do, or I'm going to fuck the pool boy. I don't know if that's what she said, but it could be like, look, man, he just, like who can handle this kind of nonsense? He's never home. That could be true. Could be true. His doctor pulled him aside and said, look, this is too much stress for you, too much traveling. You're not a young dude anymore. Figure something out. And this is what he figured out. And he's not going to tell you that, but his excuse or his explanation kind of tracks with things like that. And I give it a 40% chance that's the truth, right? Based on nothing other than gut. I know nothing. But of course, you have to question the timing of this. Was he pushed out? Because think about it for a minute. He was either pushed out or he's leaving makes more sense because he sees the writing on the wall. Here's the reason I say this is the guy who's been doing a great job making a lot of fucking money, trailing only tiny bits behind where PS4 was in terms of sales. And he has made a lot of moves from buying Bungie for $4 billion to bringing on brand new studios to literally letting Bungie run herd over, crown jewel studios like Naughty Dog in terms of when they can release a game and when it's ready in terms of multiplayer and games of service. That's his war plan. And he's going to leave now before it. I mean, that's a rare thing when you put something into production. It's like leaving a game before it's finished and you're the director. It's like, that's weird. That's really, really fucking weird. So maybe he sees the writing on the wall and he's like, I got to get out of here before it all falls on me. Maybe Sony, was like, if you fuck up and you don't let Microsoft get Xbox, or goddamn it, Jaffe, Xbox get Activision, you're out. It's a hard one to swallow. You can't blame Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan did everything he could, but I don't know, man. Maybe it's like Sony's looking at it and going, okay, now that Xbox, the deal is done, we really have to pivot this company. We're going to, I don't know what they're going to do. Are we going to sell it? Are we going to break up the PlayStation division? I mean, I'm just speculating. I don't know. But to me, those two things seem more likely. Either he recognizes, and I don't blame him, that games as a service was probably, it made sense at the time. I thought it made sense, probably still makes sense. Man, we'll talk about it in a minute. You can't rely on that market. You cannot rely on that market. And he has gone all in financially on that market. And maybe he's just like, fuck. Or maybe Sony's just like, dude, we can't win going this way, right? And we need to change captains. I don't really know, obviously. But this is not, his story doesn't ring true only because he's right in the middle of trying to execute this vision, and he's just going to up and leave, right? So I think what's happening is the forces and the powers that be at Sony are looking at the fact, and we've talked about this on this very show, that fundamentally, this is just me, I'm not saying, I'm not reporting anything, not that I'm a reporter, but, fundamentally, PlayStation is going to have to make some major shifts to compete now. Because the market is not what it was. And you've got, you got Capcom, they made the news this week, the president, because he was saying, I would generously or graciously decline if Xbox wanted to buy us. Although he didn't say anything about Sony, so who knows. But you've got that guy saying games are getting too expensive to make and we need to charge more money. You literally, here's a tweet that came out today from Sean Layden, who used to be Jim Ryan's role. I'll get to the chat in just a second, fellas. Somebody was talking about, Sean Layden responded to Capcom saying game prices are too low. And Sean Layden said, here's his tweet right here. He says, or development costs are too high. Maybe both. Something has got to give. The center cannot hold. And Sean's been saying this forever. I've been agreeing with Sean forever. I think the video game business is due for a pretty meaningful correction, as the money folks say. I think what has happened is the people that really feed the ecosystem and bring the ducats in for people like Sony or PlayStation, they kind of built a false kingdom on this foundation that is not loyal because they're loyal. I don't mean like individuals aren't loyal, but I mean, you can't sustain that. And what you can sustain, if you look at something like, I'm not going to get into games, but if you look at specific games that are doing well that don't cost near as much, that is sustainable. That is what Sean is saying. You will never not have this correction. It's coming because you've built an entire market around people that say they only want the graphics and production value and not games as a service. And so there's going to be a point where those get fewer and fewer. And those people, if what they're saying is true, they just step away. And they say, I don't want to play games anymore. I don't like that. And who will be left? The people who genuinely love the art form. And Nintendo will still be hanging in there. And, who knows who else is going to be hanging in there. But I think Layden has always had a good point. And I think maybe at Sony, this goes back to Ryan, I didn't forget. Maybe at Sony, they're starting to kind of look at this and go, we have built this, we've had this wonderful legacy. We've had this wonderful group of products. But more of the same is not going to work anymore. That's what I think. That's what I think is happening. Sean thinks is happening. And when you take that and you think about what just happened with Jim Ryan today, announcing his retirement, it wouldn't surprise me if there's some big shifts coming and this is just sort of changing of the guard because they know there are big shifts coming. So let me get to the chat and see what you guys have to say about this. Addy Pie's been a member for 5 months. Thank you, buddy. He says, Jim Ryan left before proper development kicked off for PlayStation 6. He's a smart man, didn't want the extra burden. That's absolutely not true. PlayStation 6 is well into its development cycle. They're not making full-on games for it yet, but if you think there aren't many people working on PS6 right now, you would be incorrect. I remember going to Tokyo to present God of War when it was very early. So this must have been, the game shipped in 2005. This must have been 2002. And they were taking me up into these rooms with key cards and all this and showing me PS3 development. And this was 4 years before it dropped. So no, that's still going Craig Hooligan, thank you, buddy. He has sent a super chat. I appreciate it. He says they should hire Peter Moore. I don't think so. I don't think Peter Moore has ever been a crackerjack executive when it comes to sort of the core business of core games. Certainly sports, but you know. Let me check what you guys think. Sony caused this, says Titus Crow, substituting graphics and production values for actual gameplay and innovation a lot of the time. I mean, you're right. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think they caused it like they did bad. I just don't think that they can sustain it. There's no trajectory. Right? There's no formula that you can write and go, oh, well, if we do X, Y, Z, like the only formula they can come up with would be if our games as service games do well, then we'll have a shit ton of money, even if one of them does well, that we can continue to fund these things that our core audience likes. I mean, that's like the little Death Star, chute that Luke shot the missiles into. Because what else can you do other than a massive shift away from what they've been doing? I think even Jim Ryan, this came out earlier in the week, and now it's kind of interesting. This was a quote from him that I guess, it came from Zuby Tech, but it was behind a paywall because people were going, when was the statement? And Zuby Tech said it was last year, but it was behind a paywall. So this was part of the FTC court case. But this is what he said. He says, we will do what we are doing right now if it turns out that Xbox gets Activision, which they pretty much have. Jim Ryan said, we will do what we are doing right now, which is to become less reliant on third-party games and third-party royalties, and to make more first-party games. If we double our share of first-party games, which are more profitable than the third-party royalty stream, it will bring down our reliance on third-party. That is the single biggest thing and one of the main reasons we are embarking on mergers and acquisitions. I would like to point out that we are also growing our existing studios in output areas like live services. So that was his plan. And as an aside, and we'll come, let me get to the chat, but as an aside, I want to show you why that plan every week is looking less and less sturdy. Doesn't mean it can't work. Some of these games as a service, live service games, have to succeed. Maybe it'll be Marathon. Marathon looks pretty cool. Maybe it'll be Last of Us Factions once Bungie gets in there and works with them on the sort of making it more lucrative, but still a great game in terms of the model not fucking up the gameplay. I don't know. But all you have to do, I mean, it's really interesting. We play, well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's coming later in the show. Let me check some more of the chat. Hang on there. And I apologize if I missed some good ones. Darth Nugget, 28 months. Thanks, buddy. He says, what's the likelihood of you getting laden on to discuss the Jim Ryan news and talk PS future? Probably zero. I mean, this is really weird. I'm going to tell you about this. So I have talked on Twitter privately and publicly on Twitter to Sean Layden a number of times. And over a year ago, I was like, dude, come on my show. And I ask him again every 6 months. I'm like, hey, I know I'm annoying. Come on the show. He'll go in a lot of other people's shows. Not even big names like IGN. He will not come on mine. And he and I had a private hour-and-a-half chat. We had lunch over Zoom a year ago. We were just shooting the shit, catching up and all that. There's no animosity there. I honestly think he's worried I'm going to ask him some. This is what I think. In light of him saying, this is why I'm not coming on your show, I honestly think he is worried that I am going to ask him about Tencent, which I will. Or ask him about some of the things in the Sonyverse that we were both privy to, and without giving away anything, I would, dance around the edges because I'd want to hear his take on it. He's probably like, what's in it for me? All that's going to do is hurt my reputation or make me have to say no comment and I'm going to look like an idiot. That's my guess is why. But of course, man, I'm a huge Layden fan as a human. And as the executive that he was, I don't know what he's doing anymore. I'd love to see him come back to Sony now. But he didn't leave on his own. Let's put it that way. He was maneuvered and politicized out of that role, and Jim Ryan came in and got it. RPG's talking about what the Capcom guy said. He said, prices of games haven't really risen up since the 80s. How can that be? I recall Dad paying 120 ducats for Coleco games. I don't remember paying anything like that in California. Maybe 120 Canada. You said CA, so I don't know what that is. But it's going to be a real weird, hard pill to swallow. I don't think if you look at a math formula on a whiteboard, I don't think the Capcom guy is wrong, especially if you look at a game when it works. Like, how many hours have I gotten already out of Baldur's Gate? And how many hours out of Starfield? How many hours out of Returnal did I get? I don't know if I'll get as many out of Spider-Man 2, but I'm very happy to pay $70 for it when it drops in a couple of weeks. So I definitely think they're undervalued, but I think there's going to be a really weird psychological response if you put these things up at $100 for a video game. I mean, you know, maybe it'll just have to be gradual, but I don't know. I don't know. I'll tell you what, if Sony starts charging $100 for their games, they sure as shit better get a better refund program, because I won't be buying any $100 games if I can't test them out first on Xbox and Steam that are much better for giving refunds if you don't like the game. Okay, I'm checking the chat. Sorry, fellas. We got ourselves... games could afford to be shorter, says Brett Moore. Sure, they absolutely could afford to be shorter. But again, if you're going to put it in a box and charge 60, 70, $80 for it, they can't afford to be shorter. I think Hi-Fi Rush is like a 5-hour game, but nobody complains because it's, quote, free. It's one of the things I think is great about subscription models. Tony68 suggests that they merge with Nintendo. I don't think that's happening. But that would be interesting. Okay. I want to tell you that somebody in the chat, I forgot his name, said that it was the puppet that I made that made Jim Ryan quit. There you go. Archstar, thank you for the super chat. He dropped some super chat in. He says, Jaffe, if you got the call and it went something like, hey there, Jaffe son, you can't have Jim's job, but we want you to replace Herman. Would you do it? Yes, but only if I could bring Shannon with me or a great manager that could handle the stuff I suck at. Then I would say sure. I mean, I don't think Herman. I look. You know, the next question, 9 Live says, Jaffe, who replaces Jim Ryan? Well, that's a good question. I'm sure it's on everybody's minds. I don't know. Right? Because, well, let's think about the people that are obvious within Sony. They promote from within more often than they don't when it comes to positions like this. I mean, they could bring Layden back, which I think would be great. They could promote Scott Rhodey and or Connie Booth. I know Scott is more like above Connie, but at this point I don't remember who's doing what, but I know they're both amazing executives, and the reason PlayStation is so big and so successful. Yes, you can point, and you should point to Mark Cerny. Yes, you should point to Sean Layden, but I could be wrong here, correct me if I am, but I'm almost certain to say that most of the big hit Sony properties have come out of North America. That doesn't mean there's not a GT from Japan. That doesn't mean there's not, a Horizon from Guerrilla, but Uncharted, Spider-Man, God of War, Ratchet and Clank, and if you can go all the way back, Twisted Metal or SOCOM, all of these big first-party titles, most of them came from America. And yet they seem to really struggle promoting the American folks into this role. So I could see a Scott Rhodey in that role doing great. I don't know if he would like it. I mean, he's such a good, nice guy, but he's a survivor in that company, and he's really smart, and he's a hardcore gamer. Herman Holst, I haven't seen enough output. Hang on. Alexa, stop. I personally do not like Horizon. Okay, I don't think it's a good IP. I think it's a beautifully made, brilliant game. Alexa, stop. I think it's a brilliantly made game. What? Alexa, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Alexa, stop. She's going crazy, folks. Oh my God, shut up. You know, I don't think, I know people love Horizon, that's great, but I don't think Horizon stands shoulder to shoulder with Uncharted, The Last of Us, Kratos, you know, certainly not Spider-Man. I just don't. I don't think the IP is that strong. I don't think the Killzone IP was that strong, frankly. I think they're a great tech house and they're a great game developer, but they have always suffered from having that really cool vision for their games that really connects with the audience. So I honestly would leave Herman maybe where he's at. I wouldn't kick him up to Jim Ryan. I don't know about, I mean, to be fair, you know, Herman Hulse may actually be the one group out at Guerrilla who can make the Call of Duty Killer. They've had a game in production for, I think it's 4 going on 5 years, led by some of the Rainbow Six Siege leadership. And for a while, people were like, did that morph into one of the Horizon titles, or is that still going? We just haven't heard anything about it. But we'll talk in a minute about, you know, what Sony does now that they don't have Call of Duty in 10 years, because 10 years will go by like that. But my take is probably not Herman. Then you go to sort of the obvious 2 choices, but I don't know how obvious they are. You look at Neil Druckmann, who I don't think Neil can be Jim until Neil becomes Herman, right? I don't know. I don't know if he has shown. I don't know. I think Neil has a very singular vision, and I think it's a great vision, and people love it, and it's lucrative for a certain kind of game, which is becoming harder and harder to make profit on, I think, because they're getting more and more expensive. But I don't know if he's got the meta for the industry in general. Maybe he does. He just doesn't talk about it. But I've never heard him publicly say anything that would show that. Ted Price, people have been floating. Ted's a really nice guy. I've met him like 4 times. Every time he's like Tom Hanks of video games. He's always happy to see you. Always a nice thing to say. Not a bad thing to say about the guy. And he obviously knows how to run fucking video game companies. And even though I do push back on some of the sameness that Insomniac is doing, I have to respect the fact that in this market, they seem to have found a way to make games fast enough and at a good enough price that, you know, they work and the fans show up. And maybe they'll have to adjust that. But I mean, that's pretty impressive. So for me, it would be like Scott Rhodey, Ted Price, or Sean Layden. One of those 3, I think, would be really, really cool. Is what I would say. And I appreciate the super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. Where did that go? Okay. Reggie Fils-Aimé, casual noob gamer. Yeah, I don't think so. I think he's kind of out. Vince Sampella, maybe, says Captain Crunch. Well, I mean, isn't he taking over? He's the guy who used to run Infinity Ward, right? In Call of Duty, and now he's taken over Battlefield. So I think he's kind of busy. Ravno says Neil Druckmann is far too talented to be stuck on a desk like that. Maybe, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying he would be even interested. Why doesn't Jim come back? Jim Ryan? Why? Clearly he doesn't. He's retiring. I mean, you know. Dan says Insomniac makes games that are not super innovative, at least technically. I mean, they're technically innovative, but I know what you mean in terms of game design, but they release fast and sell well. Right. Agree. Titus says everybody will hate the next Sony CEO. It will be under him that all the live service games are announced. Wait and see. Yeah, but he can always blame, you know, he can always look at it and blame Jim Ryan, right? Oh, God, 9 Lives says Phil Harrison. Yeah, they're, you know, okay. Bro says Duffy Strings, if Druckmann's CEO, I'm done with PlayStation. Well, you know, yeah. I mean, I like his work. I just, Uncharted was not his. He worked on it for a long time, but, the only IP we really know from Neil is The Last of Us. And I don't know what his vision is. It doesn't seem like, I don't know, maybe he plays tons of games, but he never talks about it. If he does, you never get a sense that he's kind of, you talk to Scott Rhodey. I haven't talked to Scott in a while, but you talk to Scott Rhodey, that guy is an encyclopedia of old games, playing brand new games all the time. I mean, I think you need somebody like that. Mike P says, what about Shuhei? I love Shuhei. I mean, man, that's an interesting one. Do I think Shu could do it? Of course. Do I think Shu sometimes would need some help because he gets so excited about tech and innovation that sometimes that maybe takes over and it doesn't always lead him down the right path? That would be a question I would have if I was making that choice. Brett Moore says Sony puts way too much stock in Horizon as an IP. They absolutely do. The games are fine, but they are mining that IP for way more than it's worth. Absolutely. It is not a good IP. In my opinion, it's just a personal opinion. Absolutely. Agree 100%. Quincy Magoo says Sony's making their own first-person shooter. Well, yeah. I mean, are you talking about the one that we're talking about with Guerrilla? Or are you talking about a different one? How about David Scott Jaffe? Somebody already asked that. All I could tell you is if I could bring a producer with me, like a Shannon, I'd do it in a heartbeat because I think it would be a lot of fun. But yeah, that's not happening. Captain Crunch says the market is too talented and too tough not to have some creative talent as CEO. Quite possibly. Downfall Media, member for 27 months. Thank you, buddy. Downfall Media is recouping from 6 months learning how to box. I saw in our Discord the other day, he was saying that he gets punched in the face every day, but he's getting really good. He says, hopefully the new PSP will be delayed until they can make a viable product. You mean the PS Portal? Cancel the shit out of that fucking thing. Who is that for? Who is that fucking for? No way. I don't agree, Toxmod. Toxmod says Sony needs to bring back Resistance, Motorstorm, and Killzone. No. None of those IPs made any fucking sense at all, right? I mean, I know you love them. I know they're nostalgia for people, but it's not like Resistance. And again, I'm not knocking it. It just never really connected beyond sort of just, well, this is our shooter. But it wasn't like zeitgeisty enough. It just kind of was sort of just there. Even SOCOM, Renato, again, I'm not suggesting SOCOM is should be DOA. But I think SOCOM is, so much has changed in the shooter genre that I think it's hard to understand really what it needs to be these days. Okay. But it is interesting. The bigger thing to me though is really what Sean is saying. The center cannot hold. I know a lot of people, whatever, do what you want. Think about me what you want. But I know a lot of people take this and they think I'm bagging on Sony. But this is kind of, this could apply to Starfield. This could apply to any big game. I mean, think about Capcom for a minute. I don't want to get all gloom and doom. There's a lot of good stuff happening in games right now. But here's what I'll say. Capcom is one of my favorite, or is my favorite third-party publisher. The fact that the president is saying games are costing too much. One of the reasons, besides they just make amazing games, that I love them so much is they're one of the few third-party studios that publishers that has not, for the most part, irresponsibly put microtransactions into their games. Right? They've they kept them for the most part out of Resident Evil. I know they're in there, but not in any meaningful way that if you never buy a thing, it's going to affect much of anything. Certainly Monster Hunter, but in Street Fighter, you can buy skins and stuff, but the core game is still the core game. And if that guy's saying, and they're making record profits right now, but he's saying, look, it's it's getting too expensive. We got to raise the price, lower the budget. We got to do something. And Sean Layden's saying it. And then, you know, even though I understand that they don't want to be bought by Xbox, I'd rather see them be bought by Sony if anyone buys them. Phil Spencer had a interview earlier in the week where he was talking about how AAA publishers, you know, are getting really super duper conservative because I don't know if you saw this. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is right here. In a leaked email, Phil Spencer says AAA publishers are milking their top franchises and struggling to find new hits. And this is not news if you play a lot of console games, but it would be nice if you guys could sort of, the people who always come at me and say, Jaffe, you're so negative about this. I'm not negative. I'm looking at the writing on the wall, and the writing on the wall is letting us know that I don't know if Game Pass is going to work. I don't know if what Phil Spencer is saying is, hey, Capcom, you don't need to worry about that if you come under our big umbrella, you know, about raising prices and stuff, because we'll put them on Game Pass. I don't know what he's saying, but he's letting you know that the AAA publishers are milking their shit and they're worried about new stuff because anytime they roll the dice now, if it doesn't work, they're fucked. And so it makes a lot more financial sense to keep going back to the same horse until the horse is dead. You got Sean Layden saying the same shit. You got Jim Ryan who's leaving. I don't know. I'm not trying to be negative, and we'll talk about some fun stuff in a second because I don't want to be this negative Nancy guy. I'm so enjoying video games right now. There are so many great games out there. David Bernardino says that's hardly news. That's what AAA means. But it's not though. It simply isn't. AAA, I understand that like Baldur's Gate is not everyone's cup of tea, but Baldur's Gate is a AAA computer RPG, right? That we don't get stuff like that anymore. Starfield, whatever you think of it, is a AAA. I understand. Let's not get into debating the quality of it. And there's load screens. I'm saying that financially, what they spent, it's a brand new IP, right? But more often than not, you are getting sequels, and you are getting sequels that mostly play it safe when you're dealing with AAA. Right. But it's not always that way. And it didn't used to be that way. But the game industry has kind of painted themselves into a bit of a corner when it comes to AAA console games. I tell you what, though, a light is shining, a beacon off in the fucking distance. I'm sure you've seen these. And look, I still think these motherfuckers need to get out of the road. I think Alan Wake 2 is releasing at an incredibly stupid time. But it's been really cool to see the Alan Wake responses from people that have played it. People are saying it's really special. It's really good. It's really worth your time. I hope to God I hope people pay attention to it this time because it sounds really fucking awesome. It sounds really fucking awesome. And I love that those early previews are really, they just say it's different and it's scary and it's unique. I'm very, very excited for it. Verge, thank you for the super chat. He says, is it publishers' fault that they didn't make more IPs years ago in SNES and PS1 and PS2 eras? Now it costs like crazy. I mean, they made a lot of them. Even if you look at Sony, all you have to do is look at Sony first-party output for PS1, PS2 era and compare what they released in a year, which in PS1 era was like first-party had like 104 titles, and for PS2 it was like 86 titles on average. And then, of course, it got lesser and lesser and lesser. So as Sony led the charge into defining what AAA gaming was, which was basically production value and really good games, of course you were going to see a decline in that stuff. Absolutely. Alan Wake 2 is going to cost you $50 on Epic and $60 on consoles, says Captain Crunch. I'll be buying it on consoles, though. Absolutely. It's not going to be on Steam, though. Where's My Nerds At says Sony needs to end these interactive movies and make video games again. I agree. I absolutely 100% agree. I mean, not everybody agrees with me, but I don't think the people who don't agree with me or who feel that I'm just wrong, I don't think if they really believe that, I don't think they're going to be sticking around as gamers for much longer. Because I think Sean put it perfectly. Something's got to give. The center cannot hold. But in the meantime, the center is holding. And in that, we have some really good stuff coming. So let's switch to some news. I'll talk about Jim Ryan more if you want to. But, you know, that's kind of what I know. It's just breaking news. I'm very, very interested to see how many or who is in the running for this job. This guy's got to be fucking fascinating, absolutely fascinating to see who's going to get it and who thinks they should get it. You know, I can't wait. I can't wait. Okay. Hangry Dad says, well, what does that mean? The return of AA games. That's already happening. But I mean, it doesn't mean at the expense of AAA games. I mean, that's the craziest thing is this conversation exists, but a conversation also exists about, I'm trying to think of the game I was playing the other day. I was playing a horror game with the Unreal 5 engine, and it wasn't a great game because it was paced terribly. It was a very strange name. It's on the channel. You can look at it. But it looked AAA, right? One motherfucking developer. So I do think on the flip side of this, we are starting to see the ability for games that might be more acceptable than just kind of indie looking games, which I don't mind, but I know a lot of people do, to actually maybe get more people interested, right? So that could be cool. But as for Sony returning to more gamey games, I hope so. I don't think they should walk away from what they're great at, but I don't disagree. I mean, I don't know if this is true, by the way, and I've talked about this before, but I remember having lunch with some of the God of War team, or some of the God of War team, like not all of them, of course, a handful, 2 or 3 people, and we were talking about Ragnarok, and I said, you know, the game is so great in terms of the way it's made and produced and all that. I said, but you think the team didn't look at the game and go, there's a couple parts in here that we just need to shorten. And if we can't afford to redesign them, let's do a voiceover and a dissolve and time has passed and now you're here, right? There are ways we could do it, right? Because didn't anybody worry about the pacing? And one of them said to me, they said, sure, but now what rules the roost more than anything, at least for that game, this is what this person said, I'm not saying it, but it makes sense, is story and narrative. And it's like, yeah, you could do that, but the story wouldn't be as rich. And I'm like, oh. So I'm with you. I do think there needs to be a little bit of a shakeup, a little bit of a change. Did I like Jack Tretton? Ted Unseth asked me. I never met him. I mean, I may have met him once. I mean, so I don't know him personally. He seemed like he did a good job. Sure. But I mean, he was there with Sean, right? He was sort of Jack or Jim Ryan to Jack Tretton is to Jim Ryan what Herman Holst is to Sean Layden, I think, or what? No, I don't fucking know. The point is, most of those decisions that I think we were excited about in those days, a lot of them were the Layden ideas, I think. So, but I don't know for sure. Brett Moore, 19 months. Thank you, buddy. He says, I'm curious to see what Sony's plan for PSVR 2 is. That's another thing. They got to be looking at that, the executives, if this guy was pushed out and going, dude, PlayStation Portal, what's that? PSVR 2, what are you doing? What are you fucking doing? And let's not forget, and I am critical about Spider-Man 2 when it comes to a bigger meta picture as it relates to PlayStation's formula. But I am tremendously excited for Spider-Man 2 as just a game. I love Spidey. I love Insomniac. Can't wait. But let's not forget, what else do they have? Now, I'm sure they have a lot. But it is, and I don't think Sony needs to be banging the drum about what's coming out in February. I'm sure shit's coming out. I'm not worried about it, like as a gamer who owns a PS5. But it is, one could argue that between Activision, which, again, you can't blame Jim Ryan, but it's pile-on maybe. The prices, like I wonder, God, people are going to say I'm so negative. Look, let me be, Starfield, looks at places like a game that was released on the 360. How about that? See, it's balanced. I'm not knocking PlayStation. Played it all weekend. Played it all last night. Okay? But if I don't even, the last thing we heard, I think, about Ragnarok was the first month of sales. How long has it been? A year? We hadn't heard any updates on sales for that game. I mean, maybe they're like looking at Ryan and going, the games aren't making as much as they could or should. The Activision deal, that's just a pile-on. We're starting to see cracks in the games as a service that you really bet heavy on. And then what's coming? Maybe there really is a lack of content coming for PS5, and and then PSVR 2. It's like maybe, we see the output of these executives in these games from decisions that got made over a year ago, but you're living with it in real time if you work there. And maybe there's the powers that be are going, what we're seeing today is worrying. It's a guess though. I don't know if it's true. I'm just speculating with everybody else. At the end of the day, you have to look at the games bought to the table, and it's just insufficient. No bias. Interesting, says John. Beer Baron says, interesting how he isn't getting replaced by Holster Yoshida. Seems like this was a forced step down from upper management. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that is necessarily because Holst and Yoshida weren't immediately moved up. I think this is a big decision, and I don't think if Jim announces this, they might be like, it may go to Holst. I don't think it would go to Shu, but I would love to see Shu getting more authority there like he used to have. Maybe Yoshida gets Holst's job back. I don't fucking know. But certainly that theory, which is it's strange that they didn't have anybody in the chamber ready to go, but maybe this was a surprise. I don't fucking know. Okay. I'm looking for this chat. I don't want to miss it. Here we go. Brett Moore has been a member for 19 months. Thank you, buddy. He says, I'm curious to see what Sony's plan for PSVR 2 is in the near future. The rumor from the leaks last week point to Sony remaking PlayStation Home and their own metaverse. Take with a grain of salt. I saw that rumor as well. So what, right? I mean, unless they do something amazing with their vision for the metaverse that no one's tried yet, it's not like Home ever did that well. People look back fondly, nostalgically and whatnot, but it's, I don't think that's the shot in the arm PSVR 2 needs. That said, though, if we have time today, we'll get into the MetaQuest stuff because I will be buying both of their brand new products they announced today. Absolutely. But we'll get to that later. Andreas, thank you, buddy. You've been a member for 32 fucking months. You could be a member. You could come to game night and movie night and come to special members only streams and special member only videos. And you could chat in the Discord and play games with us. You could. All you got to do is step up and join the Diet Soda Soldiers. In the meantime, consider liking this video or liking this stream and consider subscribing. I would appreciate it. But listen, here's what Andreas said. He's been doing the Lord's work for 32 months, and I appreciate it. He says, Jimbo was too good at making money. I would be surprised if they appoint a creative next, and by God, no Bobby Kotick. Well, not Riccatello. Not Riccatello at all. I think Bobby Kotick is a horrible human being from what I understand. Great fucking executive. And if anybody could navigate these waters and figure out how to do PlayStation without a lot of the third-party support or at the level it was now that Activision's going away in 10 years, not immediately. I could see him. He's also an older guy. You know, maybe you need somebody younger. Get somebody in there with some verve. You know, it's going to just really have some energy and some juice. That's what I would think. But, yeah, Dr. Prophet says, what about Scott Rhodey? I think Scott's the knees bees. I would love to see Scott in that position. Or if Herman moves up, to see Scott in Herman's position. I think he is smart. He's great. I always sing his praises. He's wonderful. Wonderful dude. Okay. Let us move on to a couple of other topics of the day, shall we? Let's do that, shall we? I am curious what the fuck is going on with Guerrilla's first-person shooter, though. Right? I mean, what the fuck is going on with Guerrilla's first-person shooter? I don't fucking know. I don't fucking know what the fuck is going on, but it's like this thing has been in production for a very long time. That's a great example about saying, like, where are the games? It's like, this thing's been in production unless they've pivoted and it became that massively multiplayer Horizon thing. This has at least been in production for 4.5 years. And we haven't even heard anything about it. That's a little crazy. That's a little fucking crazy. I hope it's not Horizon. I do want to, Bungie. Hey, Bungie probably didn't like it, says John, says Hangry Dad. Yeah, it could be, maybe. I want to let you know that Lutron has stepped up, offering some ducats. Thank you, Lutron. Been a member forever and always a supporter of this show, and I love you for it, pal. This goes out to you.
Oh, let me tell you something, honey. This is not Lily.
That's my favorite little girl in the world. This one, too.
Well, let me tell you this, Linda.
And she says, my name ain't Linda. I love that. Anyway, the point is, thank you, Lutron. He's just gifted 5 memberships to the Diet Soda Soldiers. Here's who got them. Briz, Kevin So, $6 A2, and you goddamn clown. Thank you, buddy. It's generous. It's kind. Very, very nice of you to do. Benji Martinez says, the interesting part for me was the press release referenced a new management structure. And I don't know. I wonder, is that about the interim CEO having 2 roles or a hint to expect more? I didn't see that. I saw that they were going to work with him to support the transition, navigate PlayStation's future. But I didn't read Schreier's article, but maybe there's something crazy coming down the line. Okay. The Rainbow Six director was the Killzone 2 director, says Kyle's on fire. He was less hired back because of FPS games and more just poaching old talent. My understanding is there was a handful of them, though, that jumped back in from Rainbow Six Siege. But are you saying, though, that they are not working on a shooter then, a first-person shooter? Because don't you think they should at this point? I mean, as much as, look, no one would be or should be surprised if it turns out that in 10 years, Call of Duty does not appear on PlayStation anymore. And so the clock is ticking. Sony has 10 years to basically make their Call of Duty competitor if they want to. They may be like, we'll always figure out a way to have it on. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I mean, hell, PlayStation's not getting the next Elder Scrolls, so maybe not. But assuming they don't get it, I wonder, are they sitting around going, okay, let's let Naughty Dog do it. Let's let Bungie do it. Or are they going, no, we need a real meat and potatoes competitor, right? Something else happened this week where it was one of those things where a game is doing well. We saw it a couple of weeks ago when No Man's Sky shot through the roof because people who didn't have Starfield were returning to that, and their numbers were the biggest they've been in ages. We saw this. I always talk about the Jet Moto Wave Race thing. We also saw this recently where people are like, okay, the new Crew game from Ubisoft is not as good as Forza Horizon, but if you don't got an Xbox, it's going to do well, people think, because of that. So maybe this one is more like Sony going, we don't want arty farty. We want bro. Somebody make us a fucking bro shooter. I don't want fantasy shit. I don't want to fucking hear about your fucking story. Maybe in the single player part, it's a Neil Druckmann joint. I'd love to see Neil, if he is interested in this kind of stuff, or someone like Neil, do like a Platoon single player shooter. But the multiplayer part needs to be Brotown all day long if they really want to fucking compete with this shit, is what I think. And so I hope it's not going to be like, oh, we're going to compete with, Marathon. No, you're not. That may be a great fucking game. I'm sure it will be, but it's not going to get the bros. It's not going to get the bros. I understand, Frank Blasi, that No Man's Sky also had an update, but don't think they didn't put the update out strategically at the right time. Bad Robo wants MotorStorm and Killzone on PSVR 2. I don't think so. I don't think it's happening, but we'll see. You never know, my friend. Okay, listen. Golf Franchise. This is good to see you again, Golf Franchise. Golf Franchise is signed up. Let me see. I want to find it. He has joined the cult of Calypso. God damn, sir. God damn, I need to give you, because that's expensive. And that means I have to give you a Jaffe confessional. And here it is, sir. When I vomited in the bed, I just laid in it. I'm not even fucking with you. It's true. I really did do that. I had vertigo, and it was so bad that I vomited in the bed, and I vomited onto my pillowcase because it had come off the pillow. And I was just like, I don't care. And I didn't put my head in it. I didn't put my hair in it. But my face was right up next to it. I went back to sleep. I'm like, I don't want to move. I don't want to move. Thank you, Golf Franchise, for joining and listening to my little story, man. I appreciate it, baby. Cantaker's Games been here for 15 months. Thank you, sir. He says, I'm so happy to be here. What do you think of Embracer shedding their acquisitions? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think they've purchased some really talented companies. I think maybe they grew too fast. Maybe they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Maybe they didn't have anybody who knew video games. The number of people who buy into the video game industry with absolutely no one on the key staff that has been in the video game industry continues to astound me. From Google, who greenlit Stadia without realizing, what, you mean it takes 5 years and $280 million to make one game? To smaller things like this. I don't understand it. But it is what it is, fellas. Master Luke, good to see you, buddy. Master Luke, one of our amazing artists that does some of the best art for this channel. He says, hey, could PlayStation steal the head of Infinity Ward Sledgehammer talent, or is that not possible? They could. I like Schofield, who just left Sledgehammer, or what are they called? Striking Distance. But I don't know if he's really, he might be in game director jail right now. I don't know if he's really going to be able to ascend to a position like that immediately, but I'm sure he'll get back if he wants to. As for Infinity Ward, isn't Infinity Ward, didn't that guy just go to Battlefront or Battlefield with EA to take over that? So, I guess they're kind of busy. Okay. Would you play an FPS on PS5, says Mash? I play all multiplayer games on Xbox, PS5 just for exclusives. Sure. I mean, I'll play what, I don't care. If it's a game I want to play, I'll play it wherever I can play it. And if Sony makes an exclusive shooter that's really cool, then sure, I'll play it. I'll play it there. Absolutely. Do you think Microsoft will buy Ubisoft? I don't know, man. At this point, I sure would like to just see them focus on getting the games out. I mean, they can do it. I don't fucking care. I mean, buy whoever you want. But, I mean, at this point, if you can't, I said before, I believe in Game Pass. I love the vision. But the rubber, it's long past due for the rubber to meet the road on the fate of Game Pass. And in that, if they, with all the acquisitions they have now, are not able to produce a steady stream of exclusive games that are both indie and AA, and then every 2 to 4 months, a AAA game, it doesn't matter who they buy. Because either fundamentally speaking, there aren't enough console gamers that want to play games on subscription services, which I hope is not the case, but it might be. Certainly not the case for me. Or Microsoft just can't manage shit. So short of buying someone else, I'd like to just kind of see them now start meeting the road with the rubber, or whatever the fuck I'm saying. Frank Blasey, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, what would it take to see TOT play No Man's Sky? Who the fuck is TOT? Were you saying you? Me? I have never played No Man's Sky, ever. But if somebody wanted me to play it on the stream, I'll play it sometime if those people want to watch me play. I mean, I've never played it. I heard it's great, but I heard it lacks what Starfield has in sort of more of the narrative juice. It feels just more like a sim versus a adventure. Do you think the live service collection direction of PlayStation will change, says Urameshi? I think it needs to. I think you have to be in that market, and you want to be in that market. And I don't think what Ryan put into place was wrong for the time. I think there was, and look, people will tell me I'm wrong about this, but I'm going to say it. Maybe at the time people thought there was a formula or there was a way to guarantee or at least hedge your bets on one of these service-based games. And in that, you would be forgiven for thinking, hey, we're fucking Sony. We can do this. We'll put 10 and one of them's got to be a Fortnite. But if you look at the just gut-filled, intestine-filled, deep red blood sea that is the games as a service market, every week something's dying. And they're good. Let me tell you something, Linda. In fact, speaking of which, Foam Stars, which I'm excited to Friday for an open beta all weekend long on I think it's exclusive to PlayStation. Could be wrong, but it's free to everybody. You don't have to buy anything. It's just they're doing a network test, right? But everyone who played it at Keeley's show was like, fuck, man, this is good. This is really fucking good. This is one of the best things at Summer Game Fest, right? And when you read about the modes, by the way, it starts September 29th, 6 o'clock. And it goes to October 2nd at 4 o'clock Japanese time. I'm not sure what those translate to. But if you read about it, and I will be playing it and I will be streaming it, you know, the modes are interesting. The gameplay is not just Splatoon. It's got a little bit of Splatoon, but it's like you've got to cover the enemy in foam and then you've got to slide into them to knock them out. You can build giant walls with foam to get better vantage points. You can put up walls for defense. There's enough freshness here. And all the characters have unique abilities. So it's kind of like there's a little bit of a hero shooter in there. There's enough uniqueness here that it sounds really fucking cool. It sounds really fucking great. But that doesn't matter anymore. That's the funny thing. It's like, there is no formula for this. And Sony, if you look at what Sony does right now, because things are so expensive, they kind of figure out what works and they make a lot of those, like the cinematic games. If you saw the Jade Raymond game, there's no gameplay yet, but boy, that looked dull. That looked so fucking generic. It kind of looked like Sony's version of Hyenas from Sega, which I was in the alpha for that, which was terribly unsatisfying. Another good example, look at this. Party Animals, I don't know how long this is for the world. This is a pay game unless you have Game Pass, but this came out recently. It's really fun. If you don't believe me, like if you're in a focus test, because this is I tried to make service games. We tried Calling All Cars and Drawn to Death. If you were watching a focus test and people playing your games, this is the kind of stuff. This was me playing it with the stream the other night. I just want to show you like 2 seconds. Get out!
And then we're talking about Michael Jakes. Oh shit, it's only been him. Oh no. Oh damn, that was a good left.
Okay, hang on.
No.
Hang on. Flash. So this is this was a submarine mode where the submarine's sinking and you have to be the last dude alive, right? And I could not stop laughing. It was violent and funny and hilarious. I'm trying to find the parts, but like here's where I drowned. Hang on, here we go. Let's just watch this. Laughing all the time. Wow. Totally engaged, totally into it. Look at that fucking guy. It was a really fun game. And then eventually you'll see the submarine's going to start to
with
sink.
those wild lefts. There you go.
Right? I mean, I was laughing all night. Oh, shit. Come on.
Not a problem.
Oh shit, my bad. That was my teammate. Sorry.
He was flying off the submarine. It's fucking excellent. It's fucking excellent. Right, and it goes on.
Here's the deal.
You can throw people out windows and you can use weapons. It's really, really fun. But that means nothing, right? I've been on teams before where you've had this kind of focus test and everyone's laughing and they give you great reviews and everybody feels great about the prospects of the game. And then it comes out and it's like, it was great for a few hours and then no one ever came back to it. So to answer your question that you asked a long time ago, Urameshi, do I think the live service game direction will change? I think they absolutely need to keep some coals in the fire for that. But I also think they need to look and go, you know what we as a studio are better at based on the talent we have here? Maybe we should do a Cyberpunk or a Starfield. Maybe we should do a Baldur's Gate. It's clear that core gamers are expanding their palettes and they are really vibing with some of these deeper experiences. And I don't think, unless they haven't announced one, I don't think Sony has any of those. Sony is so far still about, let's hold your hand and let's kind of show you the way of the world and we'll give you a great time and then you move on to something else. Doesn't mean every now and then they don't put out a Returnal. But if I were them, I would say yes, they need to change the direction. And it wouldn't surprise me, like I said. I could absolutely see that one of the reasons Jim is leaving is because he sees the writing on the wall and he doesn't want to be there when the shit goes down because it's too much. It's too much. It's not going to work. I don't know that's true. We used to do movie nights. People in the chat are asking about movie nights. We used to do movie nights a lot more. I'm planning on doing them about once every 5 weeks at this point. So we will be doing one, maybe a double feature, not sure yet, in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Absolutely. Eddie T says Bloodborne 2 is needed. Right. I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. Mash says business is going to business. I think the future is mobile. Last year, mobile was 53% of all gaming, more than consoles and PC gaming together, and it's been growing. Absolutely. 100%. Again, Sony first party, Sony has their own mobile studio, and I don't know if it's under Jim. It might be, but if it is, that's another question. Where the fuck are the mobile games, Jimmy? So, yeah, well, I don't want to get into an Xbox thing, fellas. Come on now. Look, Xbox has its own set of problems. You guys are like, where are the Xbox games? It's not it is a competition, but for me, it's not a competition. Xbox has, like I said, all the ducks are in a row now. They have not shown a capacity to consistently do anything with those fucking ducks. But at least they are, like, for example, there's rumors right now that if you go to the Microsoft store, in fact, I'll show it to you, and you say, oh, I want to buy one of the older Call of Duty games, that will say something like, some people are getting things that say, oh, that's on your subscription already, or welcome to Game Pass. So it's clear they are setting up, not obviously the new Call of Duty, but a lot of these Call of Duties that have come before, which have gotten, a new life with all the servers being turned back on and fixed and improved. Those are going to drop soon because the deal's going to close very, very soon. They didn't make them, but now we can see, okay, that's a game that's coming. And now we can see that Forza is coming. And now we can, there's 3 games coming next year. I'm not saying, I can see you, Harry Loomer. I'm not saying that they've solved it. They have a lot to prove. I'm just saying that right now, Sony, I don't remember a time that I haven't really known what the fuck is coming for Sony. Like this far out. Like, what's next? Carlos Hernandez, thank you, buddy. Been a member for 25 months. Man, thanks. He says, I feel like if Sony Japan was still around, they could have made a good free-to-play Genshin clone. I think that's true. Absolutely. Cantankerous Games, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, you said you have seen good focus tests for games that didn't turn out. Yeah, I mean, look, Drawn to Death, we're getting 8s and 9s. When Drawn to Death shipped, we all thought it was going to be, if nothing worse than a solid hit. Twisted Metal got great reviews by Focus Test. It's not that the game came out and shat the bed, but it didn't, what we saw in the Focus Test was not reflected in the actual audience. And so there's something about the stickiness that you can't really test in a Focus Test. There's something about, is the game connecting at a social zeitgeist level enough that it becomes the place to hang out with your friends? Those things are lightning in a bottle right now. I mean, maybe ChatGPT or a next version of ChatGPT could go, no, it's not that hard. Here are the 8 elements that every hit free-to-play game, service game has ever had. But so far, no company seems to be able to sort of strike lightning more than once. Maybe twice, but I'd have to think for a minute about if anyone else has done it more than once. So, Sony hasn't announced anything for a long time, says Eddie T, and Microsoft will announce a game when the only thing they have is a name on a whiteboard. There's truth to that too. Although they said they're not going to do that anymore, but we'll see. Okay. Let's see, one moment, fellas. Another big piece of news, although it's probably not as big for PlayStation fans, they finally, Counter-Strike 2 is out. Counter-Strike 2 finally comes out. I mean, I'll give it a play. Sorry about that. I will give it a play, but, it's so hardcore. Hang on, let me turn it down. It's so fucking hardcore that I just, I'll probably play it 5 or 6 times just to kind of get my head around what's happening in the world of big games and then move on, because I can't play a game like this. It's too difficult. It's too difficult. But this just dropped today. It's sitting at a very positive review over on Steam. I don't know if does this ever come to console? Because it's so competitive that you really want to play this with the controller? I don't know. Are you now excited for Sony more than ever, and will we be done with remakes and remasters, says Alex? I don't know. Look, they are in a very tough position. But frankly, being in a tough position is often the time, look at Nintendo, where someone is able to step up and come through with something really cool. Like, what I would love to see is some kind of way that Sony can take what they're so good at and continue to expand the audience of gamers, but not rely on the cost. Now, is that possible? Maybe. I don't fucking know. But so I have faith in the creatives and the executives at Sony. I always have. But lately they've felt like they've been, it's a little too safe for my interest. A little too safe for my interest. Is what I would say. Okay, we talking about that. Let me see what else we got. We got a lot lined up. I don't know if we're going to get to... I'll talk about Spider-Man tomorrow because there's some new Spider-Man stuff. I'll talk about that later. Let's wrap it with this. Well, no. Okay, let me ask you a question. You guys want to talk about the voice acting game strike, or do you want to talk about meta, Or do you want to look at something really fucking cool in Japan and then just do QA for about 10, 15 minutes? What would you like to do? I will give you 3 minutes to decide while I go get another Coke. Let me put a poll up, and you guys please hit me up with the answer. Start a poll. Okay, so we can talk about Meta had some really new stuff. Meta stuff. Voice game strike. I can't ask another on this particular. It's a weird thing. I can only put 2. And if nobody wants that, just type in the chat. You'd rather just do straight up talk about whatever you want Q&A. All right, there's the poll. I'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and we will talk about what you guys want to talk about. In the meantime, here is the Day One Patch Kids. Garbage Pail Kids meet video game characters. They're crazy, they're wacky, they're violent, they're vulgar. I love them. I want to marry them. I want to buy one that's a stuffed animal and put a hole in it so I can... Anyway, Day One Patch Kids, here they are. And in the meantime, along with alixplox, I'll be right back, fellas. I'd love to get like a sex worker who's a gamer. That's not what a cat penis looks like.
I would like to rear up and jackknife my legs and kick you both with my foot bone.
How dare you!
Bill Spencer! Bill Spencer! Bill Spencer, baby, let's go! Yeah!
Ooh, lordy. Man, that's some good stuff they showed today. That's some good stuff they showed today. Good stuff. All right, here we go. We will talk about the we know the writer's strike has come to an end for movies and TV and whatnot. The video game is a very confusing thing to me. The gaming arm of the Writers Guild or the Voiceover Guild, SAG, has said, hey, we've authorized a strike against the biggest gaming publishers, right? I don't know about this. This is fucking weird. This is a weird one. I'm a fan of unions. I think they're necessary. I want a lot of what these actors want. Some of the things they're asking for is they want to have a little bit longer breaks to rest their voices. They want more money. Sounds great. Voice acting is not crucial, but certainly if you play something like Starfield or Spider-Man 2 or Baldur's Gate, the quality of performances is really adds a lot to those games. So I'm down with giving them more money. They want 11% increase. The companies so far have countered with 5%, 4%, and 3%, I guess, over the course of the year or whatnot. Obviously, the things that are sticky widgets with them are the AI. I have some thoughts on this. So they say that without these changes, studios would have carte blanche to do whatever they want with performances. This is from Kotaku, but it's everywhere. So they can do whatever they want with performances once they're captured and digitized. Okay? Now, they can use the technology that can make you say things you didn't say or maybe you wouldn't say. Now, I think there are two different things here. If you are playing yourself, or the character has been hired, or you have been hired to be a character, but it's clearly you, like if we hired The Rock to be in Kratos in a God of War game or something, it would be The Rock, so he'll negotiate whatever the fuck he wants. But regardless, though, I think that's fair. I think that, you can always just not sign the contract, but I think having something in there that protects someone who clearly their likeness visually is on display, that shouldn't just be automatically given. But if you're Nolan North and you're hired to be Nathan Drake, sorry, you're a voice actor hired. It's not Nolan North. He's not playing Nolan North. He's playing Nathan Drake. He doesn't look like Nolan North. As long as Sony doesn't use his voice and make something that says, hey, I'm Nolan North, by Uncharted, I think that should be in any contract, that you can't just use this to represent me as a human, but you can represent the character all live long fucking day. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. The other thing that's a little weird, there's two other things about this a little weird. They're talking about, Kotaku obviously is always going to kind of, try to make things out bigger than they really are to push their agenda. But from the perspective of our performers, this is the head of the game SAG arm. It's an existential fight to make sure they hang on to rights, their own voices, their own images, because that is what they make their living with, as well as achieve wages that will keep up with inflation. Kotaku says it's effectively a prerequisite in games now to compete in even more crowded marketplace. No, it's not. Shut up. With many big budget blockbusters betting on Hollywood names, Esposito for Far Cry 6, Keanu in Cyberpunk. No, they're not. To win over audiences. Shut up. Don't fucking, retcon what has happened. Yes, you get a little bit of a PR bump because you've got some names in your game. It is not necessary. Shut the fuck up. There's no names in Starfield. There's no names in Baldur's Gate. There's no names in Spider-Man except Spider-Man. But in addition to more processing power and better graphics, they continue. The biggest games now also rely on the talents of human performers who can be sturdy companions, trusted confidants, and emotional anchors. And so they want, if Ashley Johnson plays Ellie, she may not have to be brought back and paid more money for Last of Us 3. They can just use the models they already have, and they can age it up a little bit, and they can have AI mock her voice as Ellie. And it's like, well, that's not fair, they say, because, that's our stuff, and you're just using it however you want. I tell you what, in the same way I was always opposed to voice actors getting residuals in games, because where are my fucking residuals? Where's Shannon's residuals? Give me a break. People who actually make the games don't get residuals. Certainly not going to give them to voice actors. But now they're like, oh, but once I do my work, you could do whatever you want with it. Yeah. You think Tim Moss, who was one of the key engineers of the fucking Connecticut engine that became God of War, that engine and the basis for the Sony Santa Monica engine they used forever, what? He's going to have a union say Sony can't use what he made for Sony? It's just an utter ridiculous thing. They don't understand games. They're trying to put too much movie stuff in it. So, like, in terms of understanding a movie. So when it comes to AI, if it's not representing you, the actor, then you don't have a pot to piss in. Sorry. More money? Absolutely. Better working conditions? Absolutely. But the AI thing is a joke. I'm sorry. That's utter horseshit. We know it's happening anyway, and it will continue to happen. The other thing that's a little confusing, I don't even get this. This is strange to me. Here are some of the companies, right? You got the biggest ones are Activision and Insomniac, right? So it says like maybe Wolverine will have a delay. Respawn's next Jedi game could have a delay, or they'll just recast with voice actors not in the guild if the companies refuse to budge on union demands. The weird thing about this is, and I could be wrong, but okay, Ben Voigt says J.K. Simmons is in Baldur's Gate. Maybe he is, but it's not like people are buying Baldur's Gate for J.K. Simmons. But here's what's weird. So in movies, if you are a SAG or any union, but let's just say SAG signatory, that means that every movie that Sony Pictures makes has got to be under that umbrella. It's not like they can say, well, this is a SAG movie and this is not. You can be, I could be wrong, but I used to intern at New Line Cinema, and they were like, they didn't do union actors, and so it kind of was a blanket thing if they were a signatory or not. They may have been on certain sub companies they own. I don't remember, but it's weird that Insomniac is going, we're a SAG signatory, but Sony or PlayStation in general, because Insomniac is owned by PlayStation. Why, if you're, and more importantly, why would you even ever sign this? Why would you become a SAG signatory? Right? Because it's not like, if you're not, Chris Judge, I assume, is SAG. I know he's SAG. It's not like Sony Santa Monica is a signatory. And so they could still work. I mean, Chris Judge may not work with them because the strike says you don't work. But it's not as if, I just don't understand why it's such a weird little collection of people that fall under this group of companies that are affected by this, while the vast majority of them are like, okay, we just won't sign with SAG. And if they clearly can still work, the writers have been writing shit lately. Well, this is not writers. These are actors, but directors and developers should also get residuals. Just because one department does it right now doesn't mean actors shouldn't, says JN. Well, you're right and you're wrong. Ultimately, the developers and directors don't get residuals. They would love to, but they're happy and fed well enough that they're not going to run the risk of turning over the apple cart to get them. This is why it's a joke whenever you hear, like, again, Kotaku in this very article is like, there's a lot of changes happening in games, unions, and I'm like, that'd be great, but it's just QA, it's just marketing. It's not like the programmers and directors and producers and lead designers are striking, because those people get treated very, very, very well. And so if they striked, whatever, I guess they could negotiate residuals, but there's been no reason to. Ravno says, Jaffe, they are not striking. No, you're simply wrong. They have voted to authorize a strike. And if it turns out that the gaming publishers don't basically meet the demands, then the head of SAG-AFTRA, or the SAG group that is overseeing the games stuff, have been authorized to say, okay, we're striking. That's absolutely what's happening. Chris Judge out there on stage is still giving a speech somewhere. That's right. Absolutely. So, I mean, there you go. I don't fucking know. I want everybody to be treated well. I want everybody to make as much money as they can. Oh, I'm not saying, Jaffe, the voice actors had a strike before. It's not just QA. No. What I'm saying is this story is about the SAG actor arm of QA, of SAG striking. The article also covers, in general, what Kotaku is painting as a groundswell of unions forming within the video game industry. And to that, I'm saying there's zero evidence of that other than amongst places like marketing, places like QA, where they actually had a list of the ones. None of it was actual production. Ravenous, I'm not going to argue with you. You're saying they're nowhere near that yet. You don't know that. Basically what they're saying is because all 99% of the members have said yes, heads. If you can't get the game companies to move, we're striking. Okay, and so now it's in the game companies' court. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean they're nowhere near that. It could come as soon as tomorrow. Alexa, stop. Okay, hang on. How would they determine how much to pay them since games are purchased unlike movies or TV? I mean, there is that, but I'm sure that's solvable. The issue has more to do with I don't think they are as important to the end process as they think they are. They absolutely make games better, yes. But I don't think they make games so much better that it's worth overturning the apple cart with the AI acquiescence to what they want. But paying them more, sure. Giving them better working conditions, absolutely 100%, sure. Golf Franchise says voice actors should get a little extra if they appear in a 30-hour Kojima cutscene. That's right. That's absolutely right. All right, well, listen, we got a lot still on the board to talk about, but it's getting pretty late here in San Diego, which means it's probably pretty late where you are. So we're going to wrap it, and I'll be back tomorrow. Well, I'll be back certainly tomorrow or Friday with either an I Love the Weird or another Gabbin' and Games where we cover a lot of the stuff we missed today because it was such a big, heavy news day. So I appreciate you being here. New members, welcome. Old members, thank you so much for all the support. JN says, the WGA just won some AI protections. Why can't there be protections in the game industry? There can, but as I always say, and as it's very obvious, as you're only as powerful as you can negotiate. And so there's no leverage. If all the voice actors stopped working, games would not shut down. The actors or the writers stopped working, and you can't make anything. So it would be the equivalent of if the programmers and the artists and probably not even the designers, you could still work without a designer. I don't think you should, but you could. That would be the equivalent for games. But as it relates to just being able to move forward with production, games don't have that Achilles heel that the movies do. What do you mean? We just did a game night last night or the night before? What are you talking about? I put up a bunch of game member-only videos last week. What are you talking about? Come on. Hello, Jojo D. Jojo D says, where'd it go? Hey, I can't find it anymore. I'm sorry, fellas. There he is. He says, when it comes to video games, voice actors, I believe everyone in the project made it. Like Bayonetta, everyone in that project should enjoy its success. Everyone should eat. Yeah, they should. But ultimately, there are people in any business that are more crucial to that success than others. And if you are going to pay the actress for Bayonetta residuals and the programmer who basically made the fucking thing with the artists and the animators and the director and the designers get nothing as terms of residuals, then I think you're basically really risking destroying your studio, is what I would say, because people are going to leave, as they should. I won't open the red phone tonight, but I'll put the red phone on Friday. Friday is going to become every Friday is Free Swim Friday, so that'll be whatever you want to talk about. Red phone's on, all this other shit's on, and we can just shoot the shit. But for shows like this, I probably won't have it on. Am I opposed to bonuses, Ravnos? No, I love bonuses. They're great. I was a beneficiary of mini bonuses. I love them. I'd love residuals, but I couldn't negotiate them because Sony was like, no. Okay. What are you going to do, Jaffe? Walk? You've never made a game in your life. You're a tester. Sure. You get residuals for Twisted Metal. No. And they were right. But they're like, hey, we'll pay your health insurance. We'll pay you a great salary. We'll pay you bonuses. Absolutely. If they share in the success, do they also give the salary back when the game fails? No, that's not their job. Lion crying, Wilden see, you can have that. This is funny. Casual Noob Gamer says, Lion crying, Wilden retiring, Jim Ryan. Don't steal my name, Jaffe. I won't, but I'll steal this because your name sucks. Because you added a word that doesn't rhyme. People do this all the time. It's crazy. Lion crying, retiring, Jim Ryan. That's mine. You put in Wilding. What? Even if you do IN, Lion crying, Wilden. Nope, you fucked it up, buddy. You fucked it up and you tried to play big boy rights with me. You could do Lion crying, denying, no more private jet flying, retiring Jim Ryan. You could do Lion crying, what made him leave? Let's get to prying, retiring Jim Ryan. You could do that, but you can't do Wilding. You might as well say Lion crying, neurologically diverse, retiring Jim Ryan. What? You can't do it. You just don't get to frying. There's a good one. There's a good one. That's good. Zeke says, here's mine. Retiring before the firing, Jim Ryan. That's good. That's good. There you go. I love it. I love it. Nice. All right, fellas, that's Gabbing Games. I'll see you guys on something tomorrow. And I'll see you on Free Swim Friday on Friday. Bukaki, I will let you know tomorrow morning when I get up what time the show will be. Whether or not it is a Gabbing Games or a I Love the Weird is TBD. But there will be a live show tomorrow. Later in the afternoon, though, because I have a doctor appointment. So I'll get to you on Discord in the morning. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Be well. Thank you for hanging out with me. Have a great rest of your night. Good night, all you knuckleheads. I appreciate it, fellas. Hey, come back. Where'd that go? Hey. Hey.
Bill Spencer! Bill Spencer! Bill Spencer, baby, let's go! Yeah!
Fuck, it was muted again. God damn it, Maverick. I gotta fix that.
That's a huge bitch!
You shut your goddamn whore mouth.
How dare you?
Daddy, chill.
Everybody hates you, and I'm glad your husband died.
God damn it, Fabric!
My view of the world is different because I'm a white guy. I can't help but be racist. It's true.